tonight on CBC Vancouver News.
We do not want to have, under the carpet in any shape or form. We want to, heal with our people.
A BC First Nation says it's discovered the remains of hundreds of children at a former residential school in Kamloops. Also,
police close the road and let loggers in unsupervised to threaten peaceful protesters.
more arrests at a logging blockade on southern Vancouver Island as rallies are planned on both sides of the debate. And
it's a signal of hope.
What we're looking at it is a bit of a slower opening.
No. Gathering again.
We are very excited.
BC faith leaders get set to welcome people back to temples, synagogues, and churches.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us. Anita is off this week. It is a horrifying discovery. The Tecumloops de Sowetamuk First Nation says it has found the remains of 215 children on the grounds of a residential school in Kamloops. Our Greg Rasmussen shares what we know about these findings tonight. And a warning for you, this story does contain details that some viewers may find distressing.
The Tecumloops de Sowetamuk First Nation isn't revealing the exact location, only that it was somewhere near this school, which opened in 1893 and was operated as a residential school by the Catholic Church until 1969.
And it was devastating to hear this. The remains are many, many years old, decades.
Few details were released today, but Chief Roseanne Casimir says remains of 215 individuals were located.
It's a reality, and it's something that we do not want to have, under the carpet in any shape or form. We want to, heal with our people.
This 1962 documentary attempted to show the Kamloops residential school in a positive light, but survivors later told of the psychological and physical torment, including punishment such as being hit with a strap for speaking their own language. Indigenous leaders say the finding is more evidence of a painful history.
This discovery is, shaken our Indigenous communities to the very core.
The news prompted a minute's silence in the House of Commons.
The residential school system was a national program. It was a national institution right across Canada. So if this happened at Kamloops, you can be rest assured it happened in a lot of the other residential schools.
Canada's Truth and Reconciliation Commission found thousands of children at residential schools were unaccounted for over several decades. Today's discovery may be related to those long considered missing. Chief Casimir says ground-penetrating radar was used to locate the site. No access was given to images showing what was found or how it was analyzed.
My mother went to residential school and she survived, barely.
In Vancouver, an impromptu memorial to remember those who suffered at the schools.
It's triggering because, like everybody says, it could have been our life.
The RCMP, BC's Coroner Service, and the federal government have been notified, and talks are underway about what will happen next. Greg Rasmussen, CBC News, Vancouver.
Now, if that story brought back traumatic memories or feelings of loss, sadness, or anger, there is help available. You can reach the Indian Residential School Survivors Society crisis line. The number is there, 1-866-925-4419. Alternatively, the KUAS crisis line is another option. For adults, the number is 1-250-723-4050. And for young people, 250-723-2040. And this information is also on our website, cbc.ca/BC. Police continued their enforcement of a court injunction today near Port Renfrew. They arrested more old-growth logging protesters. As the CBC's Kieran Outsorn tells us, as one area begins to clear, another camp takes shape.
So here at Waterfall Camp today, the camp has been all but cleared. Yesterday there was 25 people with 9 people who were locked down. Today when we got here, there was just one guy left. He was being dug out. He just got extracted a few minutes ago, carried past us in a stretcher and taken to police vehicles. Now there is one last guy. He's out on the cantilevered arm over top of the cliff edge. Police say they're not even going to try to deal with him today. They're either just going to wait him out or wait until specially trained reinforcements arrive to try to get him out. Now, police also told us that they reportedly saw activists head up the hill, maybe 2 or 3 people with climbing gear. Now, we haven't been able to go past this yellow line for the whole day that we've been here, so we haven't been able to confirm any of those details. Police say that now that they've finished their enforcement here, they're going to ask us to leave and move us out of the area. We're going to have to wait. They're saying there's no more enforcement today, and we'll see what tomorrow brings. Kieran Nelson, CBC News, near Port Renfrew.
Now, as demonstrators continue their actions at the site of the proposed logging, their supporters are mobilizing all over our province. Some plan to take to the streets in their communities, while others are planning to head to Fairy Creek. And as Susanna De Silva tells us, those plans are raising concerns with at least one nearby community.
When Indigenous land is under attack, what do we do? Stand up, fight back!
Anger over logging in Fairy Creek spread down island, outside Premier John Horgan's constituency office.
He's not making any statements, he's hiding, and he needs to face what is going on.
People just need to get more and more involved. You know, demonstrations like this raises awareness, but direct action is what makes a difference.
And onto the mainland, outside Attorney General David Eby's office. And more action is being called for. A group called Forest March BC is trying to provide information on events taking place all over the province.
I think we're up to 30 different satellite places like Cranbrook, Fort Fraser, Castlegar, Nanaimo, Comox.
And they say what has happened in Fairy Creek is galvanizing people in their concerns.
Fairy Creek was the flashpoint that they've really rallied everybody again behind the forestry issue.
Meanwhile, those who support and rely on the logging industry are planning to come out to Lake Cowichan tomorrow, the largest community near the protests and one that relies on forestry.
There's a lot of misinformation coming out from the protesters too. That's, you know, a lot of misinformation and a lot of blatant lies, and we're just trying to get the word out and support the people of Lake Cowichan.
And there is concern over social media calls encouraging people to come to Fairy Creek to support protesters tomorrow through Lake Cowichan, raising concerns over COVID and conflict.
They're going to be greeted at the other end with the logging side of the protest, and that's just creating an interface where things could go wrong, and that's like I say, that frightens me about this whole situation.
The mayor says the RCMP are aware of plans for both sides and will be monitoring it closely. Susanna De Silva, CBC News, Vancouver.
Indoor faith-based gatherings have once again begun across our province. But how it looks is a bit different depending on where you go. Zara Premji has more on the changes you can expect and the COVID-inspired adaptations that may just stick around.
Praying in congregation. It's a concept that may seem almost foreign or forgotten at this point in the pandemic.
We believe in Sangat. Sangat means people sit all together in the presence of Guru Granth Sahib.
And with the green light from Dr. Bonnie Henry, that sitting together can happen again.
For the seniors, I think this is the big gift.
And it's back after several months.
We are very excited. All the people who hear this message, they are all excited.
And now your hand sanitizer. That's great. Once again, warm welcome back to Jamaat Khana. We are so happy to see you all again. You can proceed inside.
Amazing.
Thank you.
Obviously, lots and lots of excitement, and then also a bit of nervousness because we haven't really been together in a really long time.
Of course, it's not the first time faith-based communities are reopening in the midst of the pandemic.
We already have all the precautions. We already in last March, it's the same thing. We already did this.
While Dr. Henry has okayed religious gatherings of up to 50 people in person, some are choosing to tread more cautiously.
Just as the province has a slow reopening, that's what we look at doing as well.
But with physical doors reopening, it doesn't mean virtual ones will shut. Leaders and religious community members saying COVID brought an unexpected gift, a lesson on connecting in a virtual sense.
People will be able to continue their access to the synagogue in multiple ways. For us, having those multiple doors of entrance, whether if it's physical or virtual, is extremely important.
So there were many different forms, many different events that became virtual. As we reopen, I think there is a large part of the community that's now become quite accustomed to some of those virtual offerings. So some of that will continue.
Lessons learned from COVID that won't go away. Zara Premji, CBC News, Vancouver.
BC is reporting 317 new confirmed cases of COVID-19 today. Sadly, 2 more people have died, meaning the disease has now killed 1,692 people in our province. Just under 300 people are in hospitals. 79 of them are in critical care. A record high 73,000 vaccines were administered in BC yesterday. But with the virus still spreading, the province stresses it's important for people to use layers of protection and to get vaccinated. Vancouver police have been asked to review what led to some of their officers handcuffing a retired Black BC Supreme Court judge. The Office of the Police Complaint Commissioner says it has asked the VPD to do the review. Judge Selwyn Romilly was stopped on May 14th on the seawall when officers mistook him for an assault suspect decades younger. Romilly himself did not file a complaint. The commissioner's office says it received third-party complaints from people concerned with police conduct. The province has now announced $10 million more in funding for sexual assault response programs across BC.
People facing violence or sexual assault need to know that services in their community are there when they need them. And organizations like EVA BC and the groups who have and will be receiving grants work tirelessly to provide these supports for survivors.
The money is in addition to the $10 million from last year used to establish the Emergency Sexual Assault Services Grant Program. It's provided support for survivors through 23 organizations in BC. Half that funding went to Indigenous services led by Indigenous leaders to provide culturally appropriate support. Friends, family, and political leaders are mourning the loss of a BC Indigenous advocate. Sarah Robinson spent her life raising awareness about Canada's colonial past and fighting for reconciliation. Our John Hernandez reports on her lasting impact.
We're marching towards the future.
She only had 35 years to do it, but Sarah Robinson spent her life making her home a better place.
I personally believe that Canada can look better in the span of a generation.
A renowned sense of optimism fueled by acknowledging the trauma of the past. Robinson was an advocate for Indigenous rights, her tool of choice, educating others about Canada's colonial history.
Government employees who haven't had the opportunity to learn about these things need to have opportunities so that they can understand the way that their job, their 9 to 5 every day, is in some way linked to Indigenous oppression.
She embodied the strength and resiliency of an Indigenous matriarch.
Chastity Davis-Alphonse was her close friend for more than a decade. The pair met on a BC advisory council aimed at improving the lives of Indigenous women.
She was just motivated, and she could see it and taste it and feel the change in Canada for a better Canada, for better relationships.
Robinson would go on to help re-establish BC's Human Rights Commission. She then enrolled in UVic's law program. Bright plans for the future that were suddenly cut short.
And she just had a stomach ache, and she went to the emergency room, and an hour and a half later she was in an operating room getting operated on.
Robinson battled cancer for the last 2 years, but still continued to educate and advocate right up until the day she died.
She, was looking forward to being reunited with her dad and with her ancestors.
An online fundraiser in her name has since earned more than $100,000. Friends and family hope to launch a scholarship to honor her legacy.
Anyone that has ever met her talks about her as a future leader.
I really feel like she was one of the most formidable Indigenous woman leaders that our country has seen ever.
A feat accomplished in just a few decades. Her loved ones wonder what she could have achieved with more. John Hernandez, CBC News, Vancouver.
Meteorologist Johanna Wagstaffe joins us now with the provincial forecast. Joe took a walk in the sun, tracksuit and all. Delightful. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yes, hopefully you've got the short version of the tracksuit for this week.
Working on
the
it.
tank top tracksuit, yes.
Oh, no one needs to see that.
Well, it's going to be summer, so plan accordingly. Let's take a quick look at the temperatures as we head into the evening hours. Hitting the 16 mark in through YVR this afternoon. We are going to be much warmer through Saturday and even warmer still in through Sunday as a big high-pressure ridge builds offshore. So I'll talk about records to break and when the next chance of rain is, because it's that time of the year. We can't go too long without it. Details coming up, Dan.
Now, during the NHL playoffs here on CBC, just a reminder of how, where, and when you can watch this show. We will be on every weekday at 6 o'clock online, streaming on CBC Gem, YouTube, and Facebook. And then we will air on TV after the hockey game every night. Those times are going to vary depending on when the game starts and when it ends. You can always watch our show on demand, streaming on our website, cbc.ca/BC. It is a rare fungus that is tied to the COVID outbreak in India. Why it's being declared an epidemic of its own after this. Thanks for staying with us during our commercial-free live stream. Hello to everyone watching online. Dozens of wartime love letters exchanged between a young American couple were forgotten and buried in an unopened box in a basement, until an Ontario woman discovered those emotional notes. As Katerina Georgieva reports, the woman made it her mission to get them back to the family.
Morris and Betty Starkman, Detroit newlyweds in 1953. But before long, Morris, a doctor, sent to the front lines of a painful Korean War. They exchanged letters across the sea, and decades later, somehow they ended up in Kingsville.
So I'm kind of a hoarder.
Angela Thompson bought a box of old magazines nearly 8 years ago from an auction. She dug it out this year.
There was this really cool, beautiful tin at the bottom, and I love old tins, and it was like really pretty with roses, and I was like, well, there's something in here. You know, me thinking that it's just like postcard, like, or just whatever, and I opened it up and I saw the letters and I was like.
Thompson's own grandparents were war vets. She knew she needed to find the family. She found obituaries, leading her to their granddaughter.
We were really so over the moon and really excited.
It was remarkable that they were found after all of these years.
Starkman remembers his parents as wonderful, genuine people. His dad, born in Toronto, relocated to Detroit where he found Betty, a social worker. Married on Christmas Day, 1952. Weeks later, Morris sent to war.
My father's in a war zone where there was a tremendous amount of death. He saw horrible, horrible things.
The letters mailed back to the Starkmans, sparking a childhood memory of seeing the letters before.
My dad was coming downstairs. I don't exactly remember why, but he became really, really incensed. I was looking at the letters. I didn't read them. I didn't open any of them. And he said, those are private between your mom and me, and I don't want you reading them.
Decades later, Robert respects that wish.
Eventually, I would like the original letters to be buried with me, since I'm going to be buried with my parents.
He's not reading them, but I definitely am. I'm so excited to read them.
With Dad's blessing.
It's so clear from these letters, how much they cared about each other.
Her grandmother would be proud. Betty was a genealogist tracking the diaspora of Jews around the world.
And that's, again, why this is the craziest story, is that my grandmother's life was dedicated to this kind of thing.
As for how the letters ended up in Kingsville, Robert assumes it happened during the sale of his mother's house in 2013. But what matters most, where they are now.
I'm glad the letters are back where they belong.
And he's grateful to Thompson for making that happen. Katerina Georgieva, CBC News, Windsor.
We're going to be back in just a few moments with more on COVID in Canada and around the world, particularly in India. Stick around. India is finally starting to see a gradual decline in COVID cases, but doctors are now battling another deadly condition. Salima Shivji looks at the surge of black fungus and why medical experts are so worried.
As India's punishing second wave swept through hospital after hospital, another rare and often deadly infection was taking hold in some. Patients who survived COVID-19 only to be struck again, plagued by an infection, bringing blurred vision and debilitating headaches.
These are patients who are in post-corona period, say after 2 weeks of recovery, who are immunocompromised.
The steroid drugs used to beat back COVID-19, beating down the immune system too, helping the fungus spawn. It attacks mainly those with diabetes who are prone to infections and causes deep despair. The main treatment is surgery to cut away the infected parts of the body. This man's friend had his jawbone removed. Doctors say he'll lose an eye too, the only way to save his life.
Our strategy.
India's prime minister has called the infection a new challenge that needs to be tackled. Several states have declared black fungus epidemics as the official number of those infected hovers near 12,000.
This is beyond anything on our wildest nightmares.
It's left fungal infection experts like Ilan Schwartz watching in horror.
It is happening on a scale that is completely, without any modern precedent.
India was already at a disadvantage. The rate of black fungus before COVID was 70 times higher than the rest of the world because so many Indians suffer from uncontrolled diabetes. With antifungal medication now in short supply, there's one slim bit of good news.
This is not a contagious disease. People don't pass it from one individual to another.
But there's also no immediate way out, with widespread vaccination still far off and COVID case counts still so high. Salima Shivji, CBC News, Vancouver.
CBC News has learned that the BC government has been quietly paying a subsidy to the province's wine industry, a practice that may contravene the free trade agreement. As Terry Malewski reports, this comes with the BC election just days away.
The BC wine industry has had a hard time adjusting to the free trade agreement, but not as hard as it seemed. It turns out that for the past 18 months, the BC government has been paying covert commissions to BC wineries to protect them from competition.
The subsidies began when the wine provisions of the Canada-US Free Trade Agreement kicked in. Under the plan, almost $14 million is to be paid out over 6 years, but these payments were never publicly debated or even announced. The wine producers will not talk about it, but the BC government has now confirmed to CBC News that the secret subsidies are being paid.
We provide support to the BC wineries. Absolutely.
The head of the BC Liquor Branch says the plan is legal because it's unchallenged, but the funding is not public and is not shown in the budget.
It has cabinet approval.
Cabinet approval. Can you produce that?
I can't, no.
The legality of the subsidy is being questioned in Washington. Bill Merkin was a key U.S. negotiator on the free trade agreement.
By doing it this way, it makes it look like they were purposely trying to circumvent the free trade agreement and the NAFTA.
Trade law requires government liquor agencies to apply the same markups to foreign and domestic wines. So if a wine retails for $12, the agency is supposed to pay the same wholesale price, say $5, whether it's French or Californian or BC wine. The BC government does pay the same, but then it quietly pays an extra $2 a bottle to BC wineries, as long as the wine is certified Canadian with the VQA label.
The BC government knows that it's illegal because they're doing it in secret.
Conrad Edgebick is a wine columnist who dug up this story and brought it to the CBC. He believes the legality of the subsidy is one problem, but the effect of it is another. He says the payments reward wineries for producing wine just because it's Canadian, regardless of whether it's any good.
The British Columbia government is subsidizing a mediocre industry. Instead of strengthening the industry, it's actually weakening the industry by making it dependent on subsidies to produce mediocre wines.
There is, of course, a political context to all of this. The BC election is very close, and the Liberals are promising to eliminate the NDP's alleged subsidies to business. But there's been no debate at all about secret subsidies like the wine program, because up until now, no one knew it existed. Terry Malewski, CBC News, Vancouver.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox.
From June 1st to July 1st, join the Talking Stick Festival around the bright fire of summer sojourn. See vibrant Indigenous performance, art, film, and more. Learn more at fullcircle.ca. And on June 23rd, join CBC Vancouver's Anita Bath for UBC Dialogue's latest conversation, Medical Innovations. Where is technology leading us? Get your tickets at alumni.ubc.ca.
In Arizona, at least a dozen homes in a remote mining town have been destroyed by wildfire. Fire crews eventually managed to stop the flames' progress with the help of water and fire retardant dropped from air tankers, as you can see. The blaze began yesterday afternoon in a community about 160 kilometers west of Phoenix. Close to 600 people were forced to flee. So far, there are no reports of injuries. The cause is not yet clear, though authorities say road work in the area may have played a role. Time for our complete BC-wide weather forecast with meteorologist Johanna Wagstaffe. Lovely day here on the South Coast, Joe, but you've mentioned before we did need that rain.
Absolutely, yeah. We're watching our own fire danger closely. It was nice that most of the province did see some rain over the past couple of days. And in fact, thunderstorms still on tap for the interior tonight. Let me show you the big picture as I take you through the forecast over the next couple of days. The spinning low currently in through Alberta and Saskatchewan, still getting some instability on the back end. So a thunderstorm tonight, not out of the question, Kelowna, Kamloops, Cranbrook, but then that high pressure system is going to build in for Saturday. A mix of sun and cloud and warm temperatures for everyone. Watch as I take you through Sunday, though. There is rain coming to central and northern coastal sections, and that front gets very close to us. Showers in through Port Hardy. I think we'll see an overcast end to our weekend, but we should stay dry and very warm. Lots of sun this weekend. It's just the back end that we'll see those clouds creeping in. Lots of sun for most of BC. In fact, Prince Rupert, you've got a nice start. Showers by tomorrow night. And as I mentioned earlier, we'll be hitting the 30s by the time we hit Sunday. Look, we're getting close as we head into Sunday, but I think actually the peak of the heat for all of BC will be Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and that's when our temperatures climb up as well. So I've got the increase in cloud on Sunday. Inland temperatures will be mid-20s this weekend, but Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday actually are hottest days this week. So I will keep you posted as we head into a very hot weekend. And Dan, as we know, a very popular spot on a sunny weekend in Metro Vancouver is Wreck Beach.
You don't say. The 7-kilometer stretch is world famous for its nude sunbathing. Our cameras caught up with some naturists who've been going for decades. They say it's about the joy of being one with nature, and it's something they want to protect.
Sometimes people who come down here and they're thinking about it, but they haven't actually tried naturism yet. You can't just wait forever. Sometimes you just got to just do it and jump in the water and feel good and say, you know, I didn't see what the big deal was. And then they become part of the community, and so it goes, and they become naturists too.
We're about being at one with nature and about being free. It's about freedom. This is a people's beach, of the people and for the people, and I will defend the right of this beach to stay natural.
In all its forms.
Exactly. Excellent camera work.
Absolutely. Yeah, I know. It's as if it was positioned that way, just right.
I've got to give them kudos, and I can't let this pass without the age-old joke. Don't forget the sunscreen this weekend if you are headed out.
Hi, SPF folks. Make it happen.
Exactly.
You can always find our news program online at cbc.ca/BC. Our next local news is right here at 11 o'clock after the National with Tanya Fletcher. Good night. Enjoy the weekend. Stay safe.
Good night.